There are a wide range of controllers and accessories out there. Some controllers are shaped like remote controls, some look like a uterus, and others just get weird, bizarre, and occasionally creepy. Be warned, some of these controllers may be inappropriate for younger viewers, or more conservative or fundamentalist adults. So if you're uncomfortable listening to sexual discussions, you may want to be ready to skip ahead or watch another video. Not that I'm going to show porn, probably, or anything too explicit. I'm just not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to dive right in, and cue the intro because everything can sound dirty. This may be the only first-party console controller on the list, but the Dreamcast gamepad is definitely strange. Not that it was Sega's biggest problem, but I'm sure the controller didn't do them any favors. The controller isn't bad, but it is strange. The controller is basically a brick, but it has handles and is thick enough if you rest your fingers on the memory card slot. The surface touches your thumb joint and requires a somewhat awkward movement. And the presumable rift you were supposed to rest your fingers in feels awkward and cramped. Add to it that the Dreamcast's signature was memory cards with screens, and it feels like a big, awkward grandfather to the Wii U gamepad. This memory card, called the VMU, or Visual Memory Unit, was equipped with a tiny LCD screen that would display information pertinent to the game, or just the game's logo. In addition, many first-party games allowed you to play games on the go, if you went to school with a Dreamcast memory card. Kind of odd and clunky to have a second screen you have to physically connect and remove. Especially if you consider the Dreamcast ran CDs, so memory cards really probably shouldn't have needed to be inserted in controllers. The N64 had an excuse it made good on, having a whole line of accessories besides memory cards. The Dreamcast was just an oddball, but I like oddballs. You know the PlayStation controller? Namco felt it wasn't good enough to play Ridge Racer in pole position with, so they released a version with one set of shoulder buttons, and they decided you didn't need start and select, so you had one button, basically select. For this reason, this controller wasn't compatible with most PlayStation games. The weird part though, and I know you may have thought Namco's apparent hatred of buttons was weird, but it isn't the weirdest part. The controller twisted, allowing you to steer with the motion you used to wring something out, instead of with the directional input or a wheel. This wasn't the only racing controller Namco felt they needed to make for Sony. They made another that had all the buttons you've come to expect, unless you were fond of Select, but with the notable addition of a rotary wheel in the middle, which is basically to a steering wheel controller what a circle pad is to a control stick. Only everybody has the sense to not put a control stick or a circle pad in the middle of a controller. Except for Nintendo with the N64, which is fitting because you'll be holding the PlayStation controller like an N64 controller. Probably. Maybe. Performance also made another racing controller for PlayStation and N64, and it just looks strange and not like the best racing controller, similarly having a dial and looking a lot like a cable remote, though I'm sure a really cool game could have been made specifically for it. I could fill an entire list with third-party Wii accessories, so I'll just highlight some of the weirder or most pointless ones, like the Wii crossbow. You remember the Wii zapper? And the loads of gun shells, some of which police would shoot you for carrying in public. Well, the crossbow is basically a Wii zapper with a little plastic bow and arrow smacked on top. It's for those people who want to use a damn crossbow when playing Link's crossbow training. How can you play that masterpiece without a plastic shell with a crossbow glued on top? You can't! It ruins the whole game if you don't have that damn bow on top! What the hell, Nintendo? In fairness, there were some crossbow shells that didn't just stick a flimsy looking bow on top of a zapper, but it still is totally superficial. Speaking of superficial, I also need to mention the sporting goods shells, many of which actually make playing more difficult or impossible. But hey, beating someone with a plastic bat is worth it. You know what the best part is, apart from the frisbee you throw and the very bad Photoshop job? The nunchuck is positioned like you should be shooting it like an arrow at your friends. They even have a light-up lightsaber shell, which I think would be more fun to bash against a friends than play with. And I always wondered why they had never made boxing gloves. But they actually did, and it's potentially cool, even though they marketed with a girl who won't look anything like your girlfriend when you play Wii Sports. More like your girlfriend when you box for real, and either are humiliated as a beta or escorted away by the police. How about an accessory that holds the controller for you, so you just have to press buttons and eat Cheetos or whatever you've cooked up in your Cooking Mama skillet accessory? No! No! What the hell is wrong with you people? I'm losing it, guys. It's like Fossil Fighters all over again. Somebody please start counting how many Wii accessories I list here. How about a baby controller? A doll you literally shove your controller into. There's a blow-up car with a spot to put a remote in the wheel. But it is blow up and stationary. Brilliant. I know many of these are weird because the idea or execution is fundamentally flawed, and they are terrible. But this is actually cool. Strange, especially that no one has picked it up. You know those 3D holograms you see in movies and games? Several companies have perfected this technology and are capable of creating fully 3D holograms using the power of lasers and water vapor. What makes this a controller or accessory is you can interact and touch these holograms, which is basically augmented reality on steroids. Instead of summoning a Kirby or Pikachu to look at, but never touch like some kind of stripper or asymptote, you can actually create a hologram you can touch and pet with one finger. This would be a very cool supplement for some games, and the makers of this technology have been peddling it for 10 years. So why haven't we seen it? It's obviously not the cheapest technology, so a $200 million AAA glitch fest probably isn't as interested in trying to bundle holographic generators with their games. Even though they clearly didn't spend $1 on making the game playable and need some kind of hook. I'm sure by now everybody has heard about the trend amongst bars of replacing their standard mystery stain urinals with fun pee-based gameplay. It kind of works for bars since alcohol is a diuretic, so buying another shot is like putting a quarter in a biological arcade cabinet for 40 seconds of fun. Additionally, you can just smuggle in squirt guns. So what kind of games can you play? There's a quiz game you can play, which is unfairly biased to men who do Kegels. You can make one bladder last by stopping between questions. You also can pretend to be dogs and fight your friends for dominion of the earth in what is basically pee risk. A Sega-made game will just give you statistics on your visit. Like it's not going to be TMI to tell that cute girl you were chatting up that you just peed 26.5 ounces at a force of 15 psi. Then again, she may be a urologist and be impressed. Sega also has a game where you lift an anime girl's skirt by peeing it up. Why, humanity? Guys! Would you believe we are close to actual virtual reality? Well, as much as building a massive ball to climb inside of is close. This controller consists of a hollow sphere resting on wheels to detect the direction you are running in, and translate your movement into the game you are playing through a visor. This is great for parties where your guests can watch in never-ending amusement as you awkwardly jog in place, waving a plastic gun all around while wearing a goofy visor. It's like the aliens invaded and humans became their unstylish hamsters. Technically, this was designed first for law enforcement and disaster simulations, and second for playing the most immersive game of bumper balls in Mario Party history. Though personally, I'd prefer to play real bumper balls in a roller derby rink with these things. Quick, guess which console this was made for? This was a special edition controller shaped like a katana. Unfortunately for it, the best way to play it would probably be underhanded like a flute, so you could use your index, middle, and ring finger to operate the different sticks, and D-pad and the buttons with the other. The worst part is you will need to use all of these sticks and buttons, because this isn't a Wii controller, this is a PlayStation 2 controller. I'm grouping these together because they are essentially the same thing 30 years apart. One of Atari's first new controller ideas was brow controls. You put on a headband and control the game entirely by moving your brows and making facial expressions. So you could have two hands down to do whatever, while you look like you're having a stroke or orgasm while trying to beat your high score in Pac-Man. For some unexplainable reason, this didn't take off near as well as the Wii. 30 years later, another developer didn't learn from Atari's mistake and released the supplemental brow controller that has to calibrate often for very long periods. Why? So if you panic and can't press a button, you can just furrow your brow instead, and if you are frightened, you can blow a clip of bullets into the floor and ceiling. So you may wonder what happened to a company who thought making an inferior version of a failed Atari controller was a good idea. They had to go into making hard drives, because eyebrow controls are something that only appeals to the British actors who play the Doctor. You may think this will be like Mike's games in WarioWare, but there are actual accessories that sense the force and duration of your breathing, not react to direct sounds. Some say it's to treat asthma, others to relax and find zen, and one breathing controller maker talks about how efficient breathing supports neurogenesis, or the creation of new neurons and nervous tissue as a grown or mostly grown human. Yes, permanent loss of brain cells is a complete myth. Whether breathing right will stimulate the regeneration of dead brain cells is not something I'd claim without seeing solid studies. 1 out of 1 science nerds who make video game related videos on YouTube disagrees. These controllers aren't just for games. One manufacturer has designed software to scroll web pages and documents by breathing, as well as a television service that requires you to continue breathing to keep watching. So clearly you can't watch CBS. But I imagine children frantically blowing to keep their cartoons going until they are hyperventilating. How long before Nintendo spins off Brain Age into Breath Age? Train your lungs in minutes a day, and has people on buses and subways blowing their germs all over. Sega had a brilliant idea for how you should play their new IP Sonic. Instead of just using a controller, they envisioned you playing all Mega Drive games going forward while sitting in a special Sega action chair. You wanted to run right? You have to lean right, like you're sitting on a Wii balance board. And all your buttons were cleverly mapped to safety handles that kept you from tumbling out and somehow through a window. It sounds cool enough in theory until you realize it really only works with third-person racing titles. If you try to play Sonic or any side-scrolling game, you'll just end up with scoliosis from leaning right for hours at a time. So the chair came and went quietly. But guess what? Like all failed concepts, this one needed a revival. And not just any revival, a crazy complex revival. Enter the Dream Machine, whose cover assures you of quality craftsmanship with those people who look like they dressed themselves from a closet straight out of the 80s. And holy crap, is that Mario? Mario was shocked at this! Of course, that font that doesn't look at all like the font used for a neighborhood pawn and grill only adds to the legitimacy of this product. This expensive monstrosity is actually seen 2 different designs. The swinging chair you see where you have to have a strong core to hold the chair to a particular side, and a swinging disc you have to stand on and try not to fall off of. It's 1/3 gaming controller, 1/3 seen on TV exercise equipment, and 3/4 torture device and death trap. The Aura Interactor was a cool idea ahead of its time, way ahead. Preceding the Rumble Pack, it was a wearable accessory that would amplify the bass of a game so you could feel the vibration of an explosion or earthquake. Unfortunately, on the Super Nintendo, most of the bass was in the background music or in Mega Man 7. So it basically gave you the experience of a nightclub while playing video games. Which is better than experiencing a nightclub and getting drugged by that creepy girl, or guy. To its credit, it is compatible with any device that produces audio, so you can feel the explosion or earthquakes in modern gaming. Unfortunately, a similar product was made for a very different purpose. The FPS Gaming Vest is for use with shooters, and every time you take damage, the vest will make you feel the pain of getting shot with a rubber bullet at point-blank range, because actually shooting your customers hurts sales. Unless you are also into S&M, I have no idea why you'd want to feel the pain of every bullet your avatar eats. Also, there are pads that will just shock you instead of emulating a gunshot wound. So those GameCube and PlayStation 2 menus that add a lot of rumbles for every selection will leave you with electrical burns before you start the game. 5 years ago, a small team announced a new ARM Exoskeleton controller that would give you dynamic resistance. So if you pick something up in-game, it'll feel like you really picked it up. Who didn't wish they could physically feel the resistance picking up a vending machine in Deus Ex would really feel like? Or the resistance of a series of block puzzles in Zelda? It was going to release soon, but appears to have gotten lost in development and sold to a company called Novent, who specializes in controllers just like this. They also have a weighted ball that I think pivots and provides resistance as well as the illusion of texture. For example, if you're slicing through flesh, you'll know what that feels like, as the controller provides realistic feedback, because there's nothing disgusting or creepy about that. Apparently we have found a third-party accessory group that caters to every cheating douchebag ever. Not with turbo controllers, but with essentially armor and weapons for competitive gaming, to cheat in as comically ridiculous ways as Wario and Waluigi. Which in real life means you're a douchebag who will end up dead in the parking lot when nobody's looking and your opponents finally get you alone. Likely by enticing you with the token gamer girl, and then you are spending eternity in hell. How about an air horn to blast in your opponent's face when they are beating you? They may win, but at least now they have hearing loss, and want to skin you alive. So really, who is the loser here? The guy who can still hear, or the guy who beat you at Mario Kart? They also sell a comically bulky accessory that will make your thumb automatically push a button 20 times per second without you trying. So you can beat your girlfriend at Mario Party and get broken up with. It happened to me, though I'm just too good at Mario Party and actively tried to lose but failed spectacularly. That's a totally different topic though. Maybe you want to taunt your opponent by using the Shock C so you can eat without taking your hand off the controller or looking away. It can be loaded with a spoon and be operated with your pinky and ring finger. You also can go Assassin's Creed and murder your competition with spiky chopsticks or forks. Another is the Electric Wang Shower, which doesn't flash a glowing mechanical wang at anybody to break concentration or create extra homoeroticism as he wrestles Zangief with Hakan in the finals. No, this is a wrist tablet that allows you to coordinate your cheating with another audience member. Every Wario needs a trusty Waluigi after all. Or you can have it read taunts and wave your electric wang in their face. So after you deck yourself out in all of this cheating gear, you have something to help you when your opponents come at you with baseball bats. Paraborg has a device that will monitor your heart rate, so you and your murderers will know exactly when you are dead. But at least the heart monitor comes with a wrist massaging unit. Though if you're going to die... This is where we get to those controllers. So if you just got back from church and still can't look your pastor in the eye since his wife got pregnant, you might want to skip ahead. The SOM is a special controller designed for erotic games. So if you ever wanted to feel what it is actually like to be with a cel-shaded anime girl, you can take this controller, slide your joystick inside the controller, and pretend she is real as the sides of the controller rumble and emulate the stimulation of a real woman. It comes with several replaceable heads to fit whatever sexual fantasy you have, and there's also an SOM for women or gay men, which sounds like a far less interactive controller, but I guess the wand is completely how you interact with that version. Like most boys, you surely dreamed of the days where you could be your own joystick, right? Well, there's nothing you can purchase, but Satan himself has released a how-to guide so you can build your own dildo to fondle or use. Or on a genital enclosure that they so subtly hinted at. Which on the plus side is a condom impossible to mess up with, so no expensive abortions or child support. It is with great sadness I can say I find two other controllers stranger and one creepier. Technically, another thing you can't buy as easily as make, but you can easily make a wearable jacket with strategic pressure points, so while you play, your significant other can get a massage or be pounded on, depending on whether you're more interested in having your hands on them or on winning the game. It's perfect for girlfriends who are jealous of how you can't keep your hands off your controller. Regardless, this would be a controller you wouldn't have to worry about guests seeing, and could be some nice foreplay for real action with another person, if you push the right buttons and slide your hands just right between button presses. I'm not sure if massaging through the fire and flames on Expert would be enjoyable though. What could be weirdest? Remember the controller that shot you, and the one that shocked you? What if instead, every time the controller would normally rumble, the controller would make you bleed? This was a Kickstarter by Brandon Grotesque. A lovely, not creepy name that 39 people felt deserved 3,000 Canadian dollars before Kickstarter killed it because they found out the guys who made it were secretly vampires. or felt it was just as weird as all of humanity, minus those 39 people. Allegedly, this was supposed to be a charity controller to coerce gamers to give blood every time the controller rumbled.
And see who gets dizzy first.
We just said earlier, could bleed you dry in the menus for some games. Then you have their creepy picture of a guy who was too excited to have his blood being taken next to a towel, and some guy with rubber gloves and just socks in the background. This gets creepier the more you look at it. The final nail in their coffin was probably gently volunteering famous gamers and celebrities to take part in their bloody fantasies. Oh, and the fact you have to sign a waiver deferring them of responsibility for harm or death. Damn humans! You guys like pain, repeating each other's mistakes, and playing with blood. Oh yeah, and using your electric wang accessories. So episode question. Good God, what the hell is wrong with humanity? And a bonus question, have you seen a weirder controller that has been sold or is available for use? Okay, I'm going to flash you. No, not with my electric wang. And you can pick one and see it while I'm trying to unsee things. Here's episode 1 of season 3, games that should be made mobile. Oh, and how about some crossover with what the NX could be like if every pen is relevant, and how about a look at a good controller? There, boom, boom, and boom. Totally not 20 minutes.